Hello, the purpose of this video is to demonstrate the Singleton pattern. I intend on keeping this very short and simple, and hopefully it makes it easy to understand. The whole purpose is layman's term all the way through. So please let me know your personal opinion if I was able to do this or not. So to begin with, the Singleton pattern is a design pattern in multiple platforms. Today I'm going to use C# to demo the Singleton pattern. What it means is that only one instance of a given class should exist within your application. So actually it's per thread. You want to guarantee that there's one instance of your class per thread, but we're not going to do the thread part in this video because it's just beyond the scope of this video. I just want to breeze through the Singleton pattern, and then I'll probably try to create a different video and explain the thread safety part. So let's fire up the old Visual Studio here, and we'll get started. So here, oops, alrighty, get back. Okay, so let's create a new project. We'll make that a console application. We'll just let it be console app 4. This video is not to teach people naming convention. All right. So we have our console application, and what we're going to do is we're going to run everything within this console right here. It's going to act as our client class. Let's delve directly into Singleton patterns. So let's add a class, a new class. We're going to add a new class here. We're going to call it Singleton. Singleton. Oops, that is not how you spell Singleton. There we go. And what we're going to do is, so let's not forget that the purpose of the Singleton pattern is so that only one instance of your class can exist within the application. This is how we described it at first, and we're going to show how to achieve that goal. And also we're going to give an example, a layman's term, a very simple example of how it currently works, and then you can take that example and apply it to a real life situation. So we have our Singleton class. And remember what we talked about is that we want only one instance of that class to exist. So what we don't want is coders, developers instantiating this class left and right. We want to provide a way to instantiate the class. So we want to create a method that the developers can call when they want an instance of that class instead of going the old Singleton new s equals to new Singleton. This is the traditional way of instantiating a class. We don't want this to happen, and we're going to ensure that it doesn't happen. This way, there's only one way to call to instantiate the class. All right, so let's start with this. Let's do a private static instance of which we're going to use to demo this. Oops, sorry. This should be in Singleton. The type should be Singleton because remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to return an instance of this class. So we're going to declare a private static variable, call it instance, and the type is going to be, the return type is going to be Singleton. So what we're going to do, we are going to create a static method. Why are we doing static? Everything is static because we do not want any instantiation of this class. So when you create, you cannot instantiate a static class or static methods or static properties within a class. So this is why everything is static. So let's call this public static singleton, and we're going to call the method create singleton instance. So we're going to use this every time we want an instance of this class. We're just going to call this method. So what we're going to do here, we are going to set, we have to return, this is why it's saying you can't find the return keyword. That's why it was red and squiggly. So we could return an instance of the singleton like this. So what this does, every time you call this method, it returns an instance of the singleton class. And that, if you build it, that should work. And it does, it builds. However, we don't want that. We want to check if there isn't already an instance of singleton before we do this. So we're going to write an if statement here, and we're going to say if instance is null, that's the only time we're going to return an instance of the singleton class, right? This is what actually makes this a singleton. This is the essence of the singleton pattern design, is what I'm trying to say. So you check if there is not already an instance of the singleton class that exists, then you create an instance. And what you do, instead of returning the instance here, you return this, that should have gone away, but public static instance, public static return instance, and let's build this, and then it does go away. Okay, all right, so now what we're going to do, excuse me, we are going to see how we use this actual class. We're going to go into our console and say, we are going to say singleton. We're going to create a class, an instance, sorry, of the singleton class here. We're going to call it instance1. And we're going to do, remember now, in order to create an instance, we want to call that create single instance method, right? We don't want this, again, we do not want this instance1 equals to new. This is how we traditionally instantiate classes, and we don't want that. If you build it right now, it will build because there's nothing wrong with a statement in and of itself. However, let's prevent this from happening because like I said, this is the whole purpose of this, is to control the way instances of this class are created. So let's make sure that people don't do this and they do that. One way to do this is we can use a constructor here, singleton, and set this to, you can set it to protected, but let's set it to private. You can also set it to protected and use it when you are inheriting this class. But for the purpose of this demo, we're going to use private. And then we're going to come here. See, now it doesn't let you do that because we set a protection level. So this goes away. Goodbye. Come here. So we're going to keep going this route here. We want to say every time we want an instance of the singleton class, we're going to call this method, which ensures that there's not already an instance of this class before it gives you that instance back, right? So this is what the singleton pattern is here, and we're going to go further. We're going to create a second instance to make sure that to show how if it's actually working. If instance 1 equals to instance 2, it means that the pattern is working. We're going to say console.writeLine object instances are equal. Else, we're going to say they're not equal. And then we're going to run this. Oh, let's to a console.read key, I suppose, to keep that console open. And let's run this. All right, here it says object instances are equal, right? It means that this instance and that instance are exactly the same. That's what it means. It doesn't mean anything else. It's the same. You can keep creating instances of that class till the cows come home all over the application. They will always be the same instance. That is the only thing it means. It does not mean you can't create a third, a fourth, a fifth, a hundredth instance of that class. That's not what it means. It means every single instance you create of this class, it's going to be the same instance. That's singleton pattern right there. And this is why this held true. In this case, it's instance 1 is equal to instance 2. And if not, it would have said, no, it's not equal. So earlier, I went here, let's stop this real quickly, and I was showing how this is what really guarantees one instance, the existence of only one instance at a time. And I will prove it, because if I do this and I run that, now it says object instances are not equal. If you look here, this was not true. So what happened was it created instance 1, and it did not check if instance 1 was null here. It created instance 2. So this is perfectly fine if you're not seeking a singleton pattern. If the outcome you're not expecting only one instance to exist. So let's go back here and make this true again. Make sure that it checks for the existence of that instance before returning this. So, at this point, when I saw that the first time, I was like, okay, great. But I need more concrete, something, a better example, something more visible, more concrete. So what I want to show you now is a constructor gets called every time a class gets instantiated. So let's create this public static. Let's create an integer called I and set it to 0. Within this constructor right here, we're going to set I equals to I plus 1. So every time the singleton class is instantiated, this piece of code is going to run. And what we're going to do here, we're actually going to write out what that is. WriteLine, excuse me. And let's do singleton dot I. Yep, there we go. That should work. And we'll do the same thing here. And let's clean this up a little bit. We'll do this and we'll write the same thing here. Okay, so now we're actually going to see, we're going to I'm going to have a better visual of the singleton pattern in action. Run this. It says object instances are equal, and I is equal to 1. And why does I equal to 1? Is because we instantiated this at 0. We set it to 0, and then we ran this. We instantiated the class once, even though this ran twice. Remember, it checks if it exists before creating a new one. If there's one that already exists, it does not create a second instance, right? So as a result, this ran only once. Again, remember what makes this singleton. It's this line right here. So it checks. If the instance exists, do not create a new one, otherwise create one. So we're going to take this out. We're going to run this again. And then we're going to look at the outcome. It says object instances are not equal, which means that this was not true. There are two different instances, and they're not the same instance. There are two different instances of the same class. So it skipped this, came here, and it did the same thing. It wrote out the value of I, which, if you look at this piece of code, the reason it's 2, this piece of code right here ran twice. If I were to put my debugger here, we would go through this twice. Well, actually, I should have done that. But so it ran twice because it's not running a check. It's not following the Singleton design pattern. So it ran twice, and which makes the value of variable I a 2. So that's all it means. So this, in a nutshell, is what the Singleton pattern does. It follows that logic. It only creates one instance of a class. You can make this call several times. Like I said, there is only going to be one instance of the class. So I hope you've enjoyed my short yet sweet lesson, and feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, positive or negative, hopefully positive, and I'll see you guys next time.